No, this is not a third world country. This is a look at Oakland, California. This is Los Angeles, which has 50,000 homeless people in 50 square blocks in an area known as Skid Row. Homelessness is perhaps the number one biggest problem facing cities across the United States today. Homeless encampments are not only creating vast areas of blight, but city budgets are being drained in attempts to mitigate the problems at unprecedented levels. This is Utah's neighbor to the east, Denver, Colorado. While Salt Lake City's homeless situation isn't nearly to the scale or the severity of larger neighboring cities, in recent years Salt Lake City has become far worse in terms of both our homeless encampments, open-air drug scenes, and homeless populations impacting local businesses and residents, as we reported earlier. And despite increasing our state and city spending on homelessness by 600% since 2016, the situation's just not improving. It's only getting worse. In this Utah Stories mini documentary, we are going to examine Utah's homeless and housing situation and why the current solutions to homelessness are simply not working. The bottom line is, the growing divide between the rich and the poor is only becoming wider, and nobody seems to know why this is happening in the U.S. today. We are aiming at understanding this issue, taking a very unique approach, interviewing the homeless.
I chose to be homeless. Better than being put 6 feet under.
I mean, I was homeless on the beach when I was a kid. By choice. It's always by choice. I mean, I know how to get a job.
Have at it. Blame everything on the homeless, you know?
So I hope you stick around for this very big examination of homelessness and housing, and examining the question, are we witnessing the Californication of Utah? According to a recent report compiled by the Utah State Auditor's Office, all costs related to the caring for the homeless in Utah are increasing by as much as 600% since 2016. The overall homeless population, and especially chronically homeless individuals, according to the same report, is increasing at a rate that is unsustainable. Salt Lake City currently has one of the hottest housing markets in the nation. We also have one of the highest birth rates in the nation. In recent years, these two factors have led to an overall real estate price increase of over 23% just in the past year in Salt Lake County. Today, more people than ever are getting priced out of the rental and housing market. The squeeze is especially being felt in and around downtown Salt Lake City. It's next to impossible to find any apartments renting for under $1,200 per month. This has been forcing more people into the streets, especially those who have had jobs that have been hardest hit due to COVID. In recent years, city and state leaders have demolished the 1,100-bed road home shelter located in downtown Salt Lake City and replaced it with 3 smaller shelters located throughout the valley. All combined, there isn't nearly enough shelter space and there isn't nearly enough affordable housing. The west side of Salt Lake has been one of the epicenters for the homeless epidemic for the past few years because downtown has been cracking down, especially on day campers. I drove on North Temple to see if I could find any people who had recently lost their housing, and I found this homeless encampment just a few days before Christmas. Oh, you guys have not been able to get into the resource centers, is that?
Oh, I go to Weekend Center all the time and I shower. I
you can go there and shower.
So I go to Weekend Center, I get a shower, I get hot meals, there's a clothing bank that I can go to.
Actually, let me come around this way so I can see.
But there's no housing, so, and the thing is, they're building all these wonderful big buildings at $1,100, $1,400, $1,600 a month. How can you afford that?
This young man explains why, despite the cold, he really does not want to go to another homeless shelter.
I got MRSA in the shelter. I almost died.
Yeah, they have it on hold.
2/3 of finger
Or the sanitizer
and half a
goes out
thumb
the side and so
because of a shelter.
Wow,
Like,
really?
I won't ever step foot in a shelter again if I can help it. That's
What happened at the shelter to you?
I got MRSA, and well, it started out as a kid, and I got MRSA, so
the shelter is like
scars here?
twice more because it's MRSA.
they dissolved my sinuses, and then you don't ever lose MRSA. Like, it stays forever,
Yeah,
so that's what it
stays in your
is.
gut. Like, it is
Whoa.
reported.
Like,
Jeez, that's due to
I've got
MRSA.
2 more pieces back here. I've got a scar missing here. They literally took out, what, 70% of my veins in the left arm? It'd just be like,
Yeah.
and all that stemmed from getting worse in the shelter.
Wash off the trays where they put it, so they put your medication on a tray. Then you count your medication every night, put it back in your jar, and then you take them one. But they weren't washed off the tray, so everybody's putting their hands like this, wiping up their pills, and they spread MRSA throughout all of.
Are all the shelters like that right now?
I don't know, but
Some people say they're all right. Say, you know,
So this family of a woman and her 2 sons have decided they'd rather sleep outside than sleep in shelters, where they say all their valuables will be stolen and they risk getting body lice or MRSA. Madison tells me nearly everyone sleeping on the streets is using drugs, or in her words, having to use drugs.
I think people who do like opiates, like pills, then they start doing heroin, you know? And you know what? Like,
You find that a lot out
like
here.
it's almost all of them. Almost all.
Are you on drugs?
I'm not sober when I'm out here, you know, like, and I'm honest about it. I'm completely honest with my drug use, but I don't, how to explain it? I'm responsible for it, and I don't try to blame anybody else for it. Like, I came out here because I ran away from family members, because I was in an abusive household.
What percentage would you say are using drugs though?
Almost everybody, even kids are, because of freaking Ritalin and stuff like that. Like,
Since 2017, homelessness nationwide has been on the rise. But there's been few studies making a correlation between homelessness and the overprescription of over-the-counter opioids, which are certainly exacerbating the homeless epidemic. It's been easy for victims of domestic abuse to become opioid addicts and eventually end up on the streets homeless. But due to the declining costs of cheap drugs, including fentanyl, more people remain out here. Misery begets misery, and misery loves company. And the drug cartels are happy to supply an infinite amount of cheap drugs. So, where do we go from here? According to the interviews with the various folks I spoke to, the voucher program is not working. The shelters are unsafe for belongings, and many would rather risk death from cold than stay in unsanitary conditions. But this is just one family. Perhaps there are other families who have better things to say about the homeless system, and perhaps there's much more to this situation than meets the eye. And, as usual, we're left with more questions than answers. But in the next episode of this ongoing series, I'm going to take our findings to the local shelters and get their input. Is it a fact that the shelters are still unsanitary? Is it true that the voucher program is completely not working, forcing people to still sleep outside in the cold? And then finally, are Utah's homeless not getting better care since the 6-fold increase in state spending? If so, then where is all this money going? We think these are very important questions to answer because it's clear that things are getting far worse than they've ever been before. And the question boils down to, are we witnessing the Californication of Utah? And by that we mean an increasing divide between the rich and the poor, where one day we might only have rich people and poor people, and the middle class could be squeezed out. If you want to support this ongoing investigation, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, share this video with your friends. If you want to be a bigger part of the Utah Stories community, Consider going to utahstories.com and subscribing to our free digital newsletter, where we email you once a week all of the best, most important Utah stories you need to be acquainted with. Also, consider supporting us financially with a donation or by subscribing to Utah Stories print magazine, which we mail to your door every single month. No electricity or operating systems required. It's a wonderful read and people love the magazine. Thanks for watching. This has been Richard Marcosian. I'll see you next time. This documentary film is brought to you in part by Squatters and Wasatch Beers. Check them out at wasatchbeers.com, where you can see an entire lineup of their awesome seasonal beers. You can also get a full listing of their brew pubs in Park City, Sugar House, the West Side Tavern, Craft Cafe by Squatters and Wasatch, and the Wasatch Brewery in the Salt Lake City International Airport. Also, check out the link in the description of the short documentary I worked on interviewing Utah's original beer pioneer, Greg Scherf. That link can be found in the description.